Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe it's actually true. I talked to him last night. He seemed totally exuberant, as he always does. Funny as hell. Really one of the, and I know, there were many people who didn't like Andrew, and he was a pugnacious guy, but anyone who knew him in person knew he was one of the more cheerful people ever, and just a riot. I mean, just truly one of the funniest people.
Did your friendship, was that born out of Washington, or was it born from him living in California, or how did that develop, Tucker?
Well, I met him, we're the same age, our wives have the same name, we have 4 kids, and we're in the same business. So we were bound to run into each other after a while, and we're from the same place. I don't know, I met him in the 90s in Washington, and have just kept up with him because he was a compelling, really a compelling person with a great capacity for friendship, and I hope that doesn't get lost in the, I'm sure, intense discussions about his politics and his political activism, but he was a great guy, really one of the great dinner partners ever, and that's one of the highest compliments I could bestow on anyone, with a thorough decency, even to people, maybe especially to people he didn't agree with. As intense as he was in his arguments, he was able to see what people were really like beyond their politics. I don't know if that was always obvious in public, but he had friends who passionately disagreed with him, including some people very, very close to him. So he was just a great guy.
He was fearless too.
Oh, he's completely fearless, and he thrived on the brawling part of it.
I remember meeting him on numerous occasions, and every conversation I had with him, he was full of life and full of opinion and full of something to say.
Yep.
Almost to the point where I couldn't get a word in, which was okay. But that was,
you can imagine that, right?
That was Breitbart's
Well, I mean,
nature.
I'm a talker, and I like to get more words in than most people. But Breitbart was one of the few people where you'd be eating with him, and I didn't really feel the need to talk too much because he was so completely and utterly entertaining. And truly, I would say, I'm not just saying this because of the tragedy, I mean it with total sincerity, really one of the more generous people I've ever known, and helped us a lot. We started a business a couple of years ago, not unlike his. He didn't feel competitive. It didn't seem to me, was just nice to us from day one, and helpful to us from day one, and just a great friend, and just a terrific, terrific person who really loved his kids and his wife, and I just can't even believe this is true. He just had his birthday last month, but this is just too bizarre, honestly.
Tucker, talk to us a little bit about his sort of development of his political thinking.
Right.
Just looking at some of his backgrounds, it says he was influenced by the Clarence Thomas hearings early on. Sort of the formation of how he got to where he got in terms of his passion for conservative politics.
Well, he grew up in a liberal milieu. He grew up actually next door to his business partner, who's a wonderful guy called Larry Solov. They were both adopted by best friends, families who lived basically next door to one another, grew up next to each other. Everybody kind of liberal. I mean, it's west side of Los Angeles. It's liberal, and Andrew was a liberal. I think all the way through his time at Tulane, and then began to see internal contradictions with liberalism. I mean, basically, I think if you grow up around the kind of overweening monochromatic left-wing activism that he did, it gets annoying. And he was the kind of person who was not afraid to say, I dissent, I disagree, and boy, did he take a lot of heat for that. I mean, on a very personal level. People, college roommates he had would no longer speak to him. Relatives, some very liberal relatives, a lot of them obviously he remained close to, but some of them were really put off by his politics. I mean, it's not easy to have Andrew's politics on the west side of Los Angeles at all. And he did. He was totally, completely fearless, and pretty deep, too, in his analysis of politics. He was not a shallow person at all. He was a great performer, but he was much deeper than that, and very, very smart, and had thought through his ideas. Not that interested in electoral politics. He was not, some election analyst type, as I have been, I will confess, over the years, but really interested in how ideas shape the culture, and knew a lot about it. Also a great music aficionado, loved 80s music. Not very good music, in my opinion, but he knew a lot about it, that's for sure.
We were just looking at some video of him this year at the 2012 CPAC conference, not that long ago, speaking to the crowd there, and he definitely had a way of entertaining the crowd and being a brilliant speaker at all of these events.